Okay. So, so what are your influences on the drums, John?
My influences really. Hold on. Oh, gone. My influences really were when I was at school. Oh really yeah, it was like Jerry Lee Lewis. I absolutely loved Jerry Lee Lewis. I still do. And Gene Vincent, I used to like. Um, that very early Elvis stuff I liked. I didn't like him when he started dressing up like a bloody pincushion in Las Vegas. I didn't like that sort of thing. He thought he was an opera singer or something. I don't know what he was. I don't know what happened to him. Uh, yeah, I liked him in the early days. The Everly Brothers I liked. Ricky Nelson, all those really early, just great records. Um, and Jerry Lee was the person who I liked the most. And then somebody lent me a Ray Charles album called Ray Charles in Person, and it was an album that was a recording of a gig that he did. Um, I think it was in Atlanta or somewhere around that way, and it was recorded on a single microphone about 100 yards from the stage. And when I heard that album, it was like a light bulb moment. It went boing to me. I just thought it was the most incredible thing I'd ever heard. Uh, and it was just amazing. And I thought, I want to do something like that. That's what I want to play, is something like that. And I had a friend at the time, Paul Hodson, who was a guitarist, who was in a band. We decided we wanted to be in a band like that sort of thing. And we started going down to the Flamingo Club, and I started going down there with my with Elaine, who's now my wife, and we cottoned on to bands like Zoot Money and the Big Roll Band, who were the best band I've ever heard. Georgie Fame, the Blue Flames, Chris Farlow and the Thunderbirds, Ronnie Jones and the Night Timers. All those bands were really, really, for me, one of the biggest influences. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to join a band or be in a band like that. So we joined this band that was called Ed Lincoln's Thunderbirds. And Ed Lincoln was actually Eddie McHenry, but don't tell anybody. He changed his name to be in the band. And he gave up the drumming bit, and the guitarist Taffy, he gave up as well, Scotsman. And Paul and I joined this band, and there was a sax player in this band, um, Pete Newman, who had been in the Tornadoes, and he'd been in Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, and his biggest claim to fame, he seemed to think, was being in uh, Screaming Lord Sasha and the Savages, and they used to travel around in a horse box, and he had loads and loads of stories. I don't know whether he made them up or whether they were all true. Most incredible stories. And yeah, we joined that band, and eventually it turned out that Barry Huban, the singer, could actually play keyboards. And eventually he bought I think it was a Vox Continental organ or a Farfisa organ, and we eventually got a Hammond organ, and we had a Pete, uh, Pete Newman playing tenor, and another fellow joined us who I went to school with, Rodney Hinkstone, who's a silversmith. He's actually famous for making the cup that the Premiership teams play for, that they hold up. when they won the Premiership with the gold crown on top. He made that all on his own. Yeah, anyway, he played baritone, so then the lineup was complete. And we were doing all the songs that all those bands were doing. James Brown songs, Otis Redding songs, Sam and Dave songs. That's not a fish, Salmon Dave. It's Sam and Dave. And we started doing all them songs. Eventually, we all turned professional, and we all chucked our jobs in, and it lasted for a few months after that. We actually released 4 records when we were all still semi-pro. We actually released 4 different singles, none of which sold. Everyone was releasing singles in those days, on the Pie Piccadilly label. And yeah, the band lasted a very short while after that. We got with the agency we wanted to be with, which was the Rick Gunnell agency, and we were playing the Flamingo, Klutz Cleat, the Ram Jam, all those venues that all these bands that we admired were playing. And then we all went our separate ways again. And Paul and I decided we were going to continue to be professional musicians, which meant you're another way of saying you're unemployed. And I got a phone call from a guy called Laurie J. And Laurie J was a drummer, a very, very good drummer. And he used to back Jerry Lee when he came over here, and he backed Gene Vincent when he came over here. And the Laurie J Combo were quite a well-known group. In fact, Laurie J was in the Shadows for a while before Brian Bennett took up the seat with the Shadows. And yeah, I then joined Timebox. I went for an audition. Well, they were doing a gig at the Scotch at St James, which was a famous club in London. And I put on my grooviest kipper tie. I went down to the Scotch at St James, and there was another drummer down there, and I got up and played along with the band, and did about 3 songs and then came off. And then this other drummer, I don't know who he was, he went on and played, and I was standing behind Laurie J and Mike Patto, the singer, and Mike Patto turned to Laurie J and said, when this other drummer was playing, "Oh God, this one's worse than the last one." And at that point, I sneaked off home. I didn't fancy being around anymore. I was so nervous on these rehearsals and on these auditions. I mean, not rehearsals. So nervous. Anyway, the next day, he phoned me up, and they come and picked me up, and we went off and did Lakenheath American Air Base, and I felt completely relaxed. Had my own drum kit. It's had this horrible Premier thing that I was meant to play, and I played in my normal style. And they said to me, "Why didn't you play like that last night?" So I was too nervous, too scared. Anyway, and that was the story of me joining Timebox. That later became Patto.